Imagine this. A packed boardroom at Nike headquarters, the air thick with tension, the screen glowing with record-breaking numbers. Then, in one devastating stroke, the executive slams the table and declares, "We're done funding the league." All of it goes to her. Caitlyn Clark. Solo. The room erupts in applause while, across the country, WNBA offices fall into stunned silence. Empty arenas echo like ghost towns, sponsorship banners peel from the walls, and the league's carefully built empire cracks wide open, crumbling like ash in the wind. This isn't speculation. This is happening right now. Nike, Gatorade, Wilson, even the LPGA. Every major brand just turned their backs on the entire WNBA and poured their millions into one woman. One rookie. One daughter of immigrants who never asked for the spotlight, but now owns it completely. And the message ringing out across America is crystal clear. The world finally sees what we've been shouting all season. Caitlyn Clark isn't just a player. She's the reason the lights are on. She's the reason the seats are full. She's the reason little girls from every background are picking up a basketball and believing they belong. You felt it, didn't you? Every time you posted, every time you commented, every time you defended her against the shade, the eye rolls, the whispers that she was just hype. You knew. We all knew. The viewership records, the sold-out arenas, the jerseys flying off shelves, the viral clips that reached people who had never watched a single WNBA game before. That was the Caitlyn Clark effect. And for months, the league smiled politely, took the money her brilliance brought in, and gave her crumbs of credit while handing the throne to everyone else. But the brands? They never missed it. Not for a second. They watched the numbers skyrocket and asked the only question that matters in America. Who is actually moving the culture? Who is turning strangers into fans, doubters into believers, casual viewers into proud, card-carrying supporters of women's sports? The answer was always Caitlyn. And now the market has spoken louder than any press conference ever could. Picture the scene on social media the moment the news broke. Phones buzzing, timelines exploding, mothers tagging daughters with tear-streaked emojis. Look, Mija, she looks like us and they finally see her. Dads from small towns sharing clips with their sons. This is what hard work and heart looks like. Immigrants who cross borders with nothing but hope posting side-by-side photos of Caitlyn draining logo threes and their own kids practicing in the driveway. She's proof we made it. The pride, the validation, the electric rush of knowing we were right all along. And the best part? This is only the beginning. The brands didn't just choose Caitlyn, they crowned her. They handed her the keys to the future of women's sports and said, "Build it however you want." While the old guard scrambles to rewrite history, Caitlyn quietly keeps rising, keeps inspiring, keeps proving that one voice, one story, one unapologetic talent can change everything. But hold on. This financial earthquake didn't happen overnight. It started months earlier, quietly, almost casually, with a single commercial nobody expected to become a turning point. A moment so subtle, yet so powerful that it woke up the biggest brands in the world and left the league scrambling to catch up. What was that moment? And how did one quiet ad from a college kid in Iowa ignite a revolution that just cost the WNBA everything? You're not going to believe what happened next. Picture a quiet Tuesday night in March 2023. Carver Hawkeye Arena is already shaking, but nobody outside the Midwest has noticed yet. Inside, a 21-year-old guard from West Des Moines, half Panamanian fire, half Iowa stubborn, pulls up from the volleyball line and splashes another three. The crowd roars like it's the Final Four. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in a Manhattan high-rise, a Nike marketing VP pauses the grainy live stream, rewinds 15 seconds, and whispers to the room, "Who the hell is number 22? That was the moment the earthquake started. Not when she broke records. Not when she carried Iowa to back-to-back title games. It started when the most powerful brand on earth realized the future of women's sports was wearing black and gold in a half-empty Big Ten arena, and nobody in the WNBA front office seemed to care. Because while Caitlyn was turning cornfields into cathedrals, the league was busy polishing trophies for yesterday's queens. They scheduled her college games on streaming platforms nobody could find. They let talking heads call her rise a moment, not a movement. They watched her jersey outsell every active WNBA player combined, and still handed all-star votes to veterans who hadn't filled an arena since Obama's first term. And every time a little brown girl in Los Angeles or a white kid in rural Ohio bought a Caitlyn Clark shirt with their allowance money, the league executive smiled, cashed the check her brilliance wrote, and went right back to pretending the revolution wasn't happening. But the brands? They don't play pretend. They saw the data. Caitlyn Clark highlights getting more views than entire WNBA playoff series. They saw mothers posting videos of their daughters practicing her step back until the streetlights came on. They saw search spikes for WNBA tickets coming almost entirely from zip codes that had never cared before. And they asked the question the league was terrified to answer. If this one woman is bringing in all the new eyes, all the new wallets, all the new hope, why are we betting on the league? Or are we betting on her? So the calls started coming. Quiet at first. A State Farm producer sliding into Iowa's compliance office. We want her for one commercial. 30 seconds. Nothing crazy. That 30 seconds broke the internet. Caitlyn delivered lines like she'd been on Madison Avenue for a decade, not in Des Moines for 21 years. The spot outperformed every WNBA finals ad ever made. Gatorade called next, then Wilson, then Nike. And every time, the same hushed conversation in boardrooms. How do we lock her up before the league figures out what it has? Because here's the part that still stings. The league never protected her. They let the resentment fester. They let the veterans shade her. They let the narrative grow that her success was somehow stealing instead of giving. And all the while, little girls who looked like her mother, who spoke Spanish at home, who wore hand-me-down sneakers, were tuning in for the first time and seeing someone who looked like them dominate a world that usually tells them to wait their turn. The brand saw that future. The league saw a threat. And now the bill has come due. Because what started as a whisper in a Manhattan high-rise is about to become a scream heard around the world. One commercial, one frame, one decision that will force every sponsor on earth to choose. The past or the daughter of immigrants who just turned women's basketball into America's fastest growing religion. And when that choice finally drops, the old guard won't just watch their empire burn. They'll feel it. They never saw her coming because they never looked. For 27 years, the WNBA had operated like an exclusive country club with a velvet rope and a secret handshake. If you weren't drafted in the late 90s, if you didn't come up under Cheryl Swoops or Lisa Leslie, if your name didn't already carry the scent of nostalgia, you were expected to wait your turn, smile pretty, and be grateful for whatever table scraps the old guard tossed your way. The league marketed itself as a sisterhood, but behind closed doors it ran on gatekeeping, grudges, and a quiet agreement. The throne only seats one generation at a time. And for a long time it worked. The veterans filled arenas in New York and Los Angeles, sold jerseys to the same loyal thousand, and told themselves the game was growing because they said it was. They patted each other on the back for paving the way, while carefully guarding the driveway so no one else could park there. New stars came and went: Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart, Aya Wilson. Brilliant, generational talents who were allowed to shine only after they kissed the ring and repeated the approved talking points. I stand on the shoulders of those who came before me. Translation, don't outshine us. Then came Caitlyn. She didn't ask permission. She didn't quote the legends in every interview. She didn't shrink herself to make anyone comfortable. She showed up in cornfields and shot from the logo, smiled only when she felt like it, and let her game speak so loudly the old guard had to cover their ears. And the numbers, those cruel, impartial gods, started telling a story the league didn't want to hear. Arenas that sat half empty for decades suddenly couldn't print tickets fast enough when Iowa was in town. Children who had never heard of Cynthia Cooper were wearing number 22 to school. Spanish-speaking households in Texas and California were staying up past midnight to watch a girl from Iowa whose mother grew up speaking the same language around the dinner table. That terrified them, because Caitlyn wasn't just a better marketer than the entire league combined. She was living proof that the future didn't need their blessing. She was filling seats with new faces. White kids from the suburbs, brown kids from the city, immigrant fathers who never watched basketball before, but now screamed vamos every time she crossed half court. And every new face in those stands was a referendum on the old way. Maybe the game doesn't have to stay small. Maybe it doesn't have to stay the same color. Maybe it doesn't have to stay trapped in 1997. So the gatekeepers did what gatekeepers always do. They whispered. They rolled their eyes on podcasts. They liked shady tweets. They called her rise manufactured. They said the crowds were only there for the novelty. They told reporters her style was selfish while quietly pocketing the television money her selfishness brought in. One veteran, voice dripping with condescension, said on live television, "Records are nice, but championships are forever," as if Caitlyn had stolen something from her instead of adding millions to everyone's paycheck. And the league let it happen. Worse, they encouraged it. Because if they admitted Caitlyn was the reason the sport was finally breaking through, they would have to admit the old model was dead. They would have to share the spotlight. They would have to watch a 22-year-old daughter of an immigrant mother become the new face of everything they claimed to have built. So they smiled for the cameras, posted black and white throwback photos on Juneteenth, preached empowerment in press conferences, and then went right back to scheduling her games on obscure channels while giving primetime slots to teams drawing 3,000 fans. They handed Rookie of the Year debates to politics instead of performance. They let resentment metastasize into open hostility, all while the brands watched in stunned silence and realized the league was actively sabotaging its own golden goose. They thought they could ride her wave without ever getting wet. They were wrong, because the same arrogance that kept the gates closed for decades is the same arrogance now watching those gates get torn off the hinges. The sponsors didn't leave because Caitlyn asked them to. They left because the league spent an entire season proving it would rather drown, holding onto the past than swim toward the future. And that future has a name. It's the girl from Iowa who never begged for their approval, who simply outgrew their smallness, and who is about to show the world what happens when the throne finally belongs to someone who never needed permission to sit on it. She was never supposed to be the one. In a sport that loves to tell little girls to wait their turn, Caitlyn and Clark learned early that waiting is just another word for being forgotten. So she stopped waiting before she ever started. It began in the driveway of a modest brick house on a street with no sidewalks, where the hoop was crooked and the pavement cracked like old skin. Her father, Brent, a former college player who never quite made it, would rebound until his hands shook, barking again every time the ball clanged off the rim. Her mother, and born to a Panamanian mother who crossed oceans with nothing but faith and a suitcase, stood at the kitchen window watching, whispering Spanish prayers that her daughter would grow up fearless. At 6 years old, Caitlyn already spoke 2 languages, English for school, and the language of refusal for anyone who said a girl couldn't play the way she did. By 8, she was the only girl on the boys' traveling team. By 10, she was the best player on it. By 12, she had heard every version of You Don't Belong Here, and turned each one into fuel. The boys' coach tried to bench her for the championship because parents are complaining. She dropped 32 anyway, hugged the crying boys on the other team, and asked her mom if they could still go for ice cream because losing tastes worse when you're mean about it. High school brought a new kind of test. Dowling Catholic was supposed to be her ceiling, but she turned it into a launch pad. Freshman year, she rode the bench and learned how humiliation feels. Sophomore year, she started and learned how envy sounds. By senior year, the entire state shut down when she played. The championship game drew 16,000 people to a hockey arena in Minnesota just to watch an Iowa girl who still did her own laundry and drove her grandma's old Buick. She scored 60, hugged her crying brother in the stands, then drove home through a blizzard because real life doesn't pause for coronation ceremonies. College offers poured in like floodwater. Blue bloods promised private jets and national titles. Caitlyn listened, thanked them, and chose Iowa, 25 minutes from her childhood bedroom, because her grandparents deserved to watch her grow up in person. That single decision stunned the basketball world and revealed everything about her. Legacy isn't a city, it's the people who taught you how to stand tall when the world wants you small. In Iowa City adopted her like a hometown saint. Carver Hawkeye Arena, sleepy for decades, began to tremble the first time she crossed half court in black and gold. She wore number 22 because her brother Blake wore it first. Because family is the original jersey you never take off. Night after night, she did things guards weren't supposed to do. Pull up from a logo like the court was a driveway. Thread no-look dimes like the defense was made of smoke. Smile only after the whistle, because joy delayed is joy earned. But the real magic happened off the court. She signed every autograph until her hand cramped. She remembered the name of the janitor who let her into the gym at 5 a.m. She FaceTimed her nana after every road win so the old woman could make the sign of the cross in Spanish and tell her, "Tu eres mi campeona." When the country discovered her, she didn't change her phone number, didn't hide behind handlers, didn't stop eating barbecue at Hickory Park with cousins who still called her Kate. She carried West Des Moines with her the way her mother carried Panama, folded tight against the heart, beating louder with every step forward. And in carrying her roots, she carried all of us who were ever told we were too much or not enough. Every little girl with an accent thicker than her jumper. Every kid from a town too small to appear on most maps. Every daughter of immigrants who watched her mother clean houses or drive buses so she could afford AAU fees. Caitlyn became the mirror we didn't know we were waiting for. Proof that the heartland and the homeland can live in the same chest, that you can speak Spanish at home and still drain threes in front of 20,000 strangers who suddenly feel like family. The brand saw it first. The league saw it last. Because while executives argued over who deserved credit, Caitlyn quietly kept building a bridge between every kid who had ever been told not yet and the dream that says right now. She never begged for the spotlight. She simply refused to dim herself so others could stay comfortable in the dark. And that refusal, that beautiful, unapologetic, immigrant-strong refusal, is exactly what turned her from a phenomenal player into something the sport had never seen before. A revolution in human form. But revolutions are never welcomed by the palace. And the harder Caitlyn rose, the harder the old guard pushed back, setting the stage for a showdown that would decide whether women's basketball would finally grow up or stay small forever. The first shot wasn't fired on a court. It was fired in a podcast studio. Low lighting, 2 microphones, and a veteran star who had waited her entire career for the spotlight to finally feel secure. She leaned in, voice syrupy with resentment, and said, "Some people get hype. Some people get respect. There's a difference." The internet heard Caitlyn in every syllable, even though the name was never spoken. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere, stitched, duet, dissected. And just like that, the quiet war went loud. Then came the floodgates. A former MVP liked a tweet calling Caitlyn's game circus ball. Another all-star posted a cryptic Instagram story, a crown emoji tilted sideways with the caption, "Earned, not given." Panelists on national television suddenly discovered pace and space concerns and defensive liability, phrases they had never used for anyone else. Every slight was wrapped in the language of mentorship, but the translation was unmistakable. "Sit down. Little girl, the adults are still talking." And Caitlyn? She said nothing. She just kept playing, kept smiling that half smile that drives haters insane, kept dropping 40 on their heads, and then hugging their kids at mid-court. Silence became her sharpest weapon. Every time she refused to clap back, the resentment grew louder, uglier, more desperate. Behind the scenes, the league offices buzzed with panic. Marketing reports landed on desks showing Caitlyn's Fever games outdrawing the entire playoffs combined. Merchandise revenue up 800%. Almost all of it numbered 22. Television executives calling daily begging for more Indiana games. And still, the schedule came out with the Fever in the late window on obscure channels, while legacy teams got Sunday afternoons on ABC. Someone leaked an internal email calling her popularity a short-term spike we can't build a brand around. The internet exploded again, this time with receipts. Social media turned into a battlefield. Progressive accounts posted side-by-side montages. Empty arenas for veteran-led teams versus standing room only for the Fever. Immigrant moms shared videos of their daughters practicing the logo 3 with the caption, "This is what the future looks like." Former players who had stayed quiet for years suddenly found their voice, tweeting threads about protecting the culture while carefully avoiding the fact that the culture was shrinking until a half Panamanian girl from Iowa showed up. The tension reached fever pitch night after night. Opposing crowds booed her harder. Referees swallowed their whistles when she got mugged. Commentators invented new ways to say, "But can she do it when it matters?" And every time she answered with another impossible shot, another sold-out building, another little brown girl in the front row holding a sign that read, "Yo hablo, Caitlyn." The league tried damage control. They posted throwback photos of the 1996 draft class with captions about building on foundations. They announced a vague legacy initiative that somehow never mentioned the player currently carrying the entire sport on her back. They scheduled a primetime game between two storied franchises and watched in horror as the ratings came in lower than a random Tuesday Fever game on League Pass. The message was clear. The old guard wasn't just losing the narrative. They were losing the audience. And still Caitlyn said nothing. She just kept showing up, kept filling arenas with people who looked like the real America, kept turning every slight into another highlight that reached someone who had never felt seen by women's basketball before. But silence only works until the perfect moment arrives to speak. And that moment was coming, faster than anyone realized, wrapped inside 30 seconds of film that would do more damage to the old regime than 1,000 tweets ever could. Because sometimes the loudest statement isn't words. It's a single frame, hidden in a commercial, that says everything the gatekeepers spent a year trying to bury. The torch wasn't passed down. It was taken. It dropped at 8:47 p.m. on a random Thursday. No warning, no press release, just 30 seconds of pure, unfiltered lightning. The screen is black. Total silence. Then a single heartbeat of bass, low, almost menacing, and the camera creeps through a dim locker room. Caitlyn sits alone on the bench, hoodie up, head bowed. She lifts her face slowly, opens one eye, and the internet freezes mid-scroll. Because for one impossible frame, her iris glows reptilian, a perfect black Mamba silhouette coiled inside the pupil. Not CGI trickery, not an accident. A deliberate, surgical handoff from Kobe Bryant himself, etched into a single blink. The timeline detonates. Phones drop. Rewinds crash servers. Frame-by-frame breakdowns hit 1 million views in 11 minutes. Grown men who never watched women's basketball text their group chats. Nike just crowned her. And that was only the first 8 seconds. The beat drops harder. The screen explodes into color. Caitlyn stands beside Aya, beside Sabrina, beside Sha'Carri, beside every woman who ever heard "you can't" and answered with receipts. The voiceover isn't soft empowerment fluff. It's a dare, delivered in gravel and fire. They'll say you're too young. Do it anyway. They'll say you don't belong. Belong anyway. They'll say the game isn't ready for you. Make it ready. Every line lands like a hammer on the old guard's fingers clinging to the edge of relevance. Every cut is a blade. Caitlyn draining a logo 3 while the narrator growls, "They'll say it's too far." Shoot it anyway. Aya posterizing a defender. They'll say you're too strong. Be stronger anyway. Sha'Carri blazing past the camera. They'll say you're too loud. Be thunder anyway. But the spotlight never leaves Caitlyn for long. She is the axis the entire commercial spins around. When the narrator snarls, "They'll say the throne is already taken," the camera slams into an extreme close-up of Caitlyn's face, calm, almost bored, and she whispers the final line herself. Then take it anyway. Roll credits. Nike swoosh. Silence again. Then the world screams. Within an hour, hashtag Take It Anyway is the #1 trend worldwide. Little girls in hijabs and braids, and cornrows post videos hitting the step back with the caption, "I took it anyway." Immigrant fathers who work double shifts record their daughters watching the ad on loop, and write, "This is why we came here." A grandmother in Panama City, N's hometown, sees her granddaughter's face on a 30-foot billboard and sobs in the kind of tears that don't need translation. The numbers come in like an avalanche. 43 million views in 24 hours. Super Bowl level engagement. Merchandise sites crash. Gatorade drops a surprise Caitlyn bottle that sells out in 7 minutes. Wilson releases a Black Mamba edition basketball with the Mamba pupil etched into the leather. Resale hits $2,000 before sunrise. And the brands keep coming. State Farm doubles her deal. Gatorade quietly rewrites their entire women's campaign around her silhouette. The LPGA begs for another golf outing and builds the entire tournament schedule around her availability. Every major sponsor that still had one foot in the WNBA starts moving money, fast, into standalone Caitlyn projects. Boardroom whispers turn into emergency Zoom calls. If we don't lock her in solo, someone else will. Meanwhile, inside WNBA headquarters, the mood is funeral. One leaked Slack message from a senior marketing exec reads, "We just lost Nike." All in on Clark. League-wide deal dead. Another. Gatorade wants out of the collective. They'll pay the exit fee to go solo with her. The veterans who spent the season shading her suddenly go radio silent. The same podcast that called her game circus now scrambled to book her, offering flowers and apologies wrapped in excuses. But Caitlyn still says nothing. She just posts a single black and white photo on Instagram. Her reflection in the Kobe eye frame, captioned with 2 words. "Thank you, Mamba. I got it from here." Translation: the throne isn't being passed down anymore. It's being reclaimed, because that 30-second commercial wasn't an ad. It was a declaration of independence. It was Nike, the biggest voice in sports, looking the old guard dead in the eye and saying, "Your time is up." The future has a new face, and she's not asking permission. And the most beautiful part? She never raised her voice. She never subtweeted. She never cried victim. She just let the work, the roots, the refusal to shrink, speak so loudly that the entire industry had no choice but to kneel. The palace gates didn't creak open. They were kicked down in slow motion by a daughter of immigrants who finally decided the crown fits better when you forge it yourself. But coronations are messy, and when the dust settles, someone has to pay the bill. The fallout was coming swift, merciless, and louder than any arena Caitlyn ever filled. And when it hit, it would prove once and for all whose side the market was really on. The morning after the Nike spot aired, the WNBA woke up to a ghost town. Corporate inboxes overflowed with one-line emails from the biggest brands on earth. Effective immediately, we are reallocating 100% of our women's basketball spend to Caitlyn Clark solo activations. No negotiation. No counteroffer. Just goodbye. Gatorade pulled every league-wide court decal by noon. Wilson quietly erased the WNBA logo from its new signature ball line and replaced it with the interlocking CC monogram. State Farm rerouted every arena sponsorship dollar to the Indiana Fever's building alone. The LPGA, in an unprecedented flex, announced a multi-year Caitlyn Clark Pro AM series that would pay her more for 3 charity golf days than most WNBA veterans make in a season. Wall Street noticed. The investment group that owns 3 WNBA franchises watched its stock dip 6% in pre-market trading. One analyst wrote a note titled "The Clark Put Option. Why betting against her is now financial malpractice." Translation: if you're still paying the league instead of paying her, you're the sucker at the table. Social media became a victory parade and a public execution at the same time. A 10-year-old girl in Oakland posted a video of herself hitting a Logo 3 in her driveway, wearing a hand-me-down Clark jersey. Caption: "My mom said we couldn't afford tickets before. Now Nike sent us courtside because I sent them this video. Thank you, Caitlyn." A father in Des Moines, voice cracking, filmed his daughter opening a box from Gatorade. Inside, a personalized bottle that read, "To Sophia, keep shooting from Panama, love Caitlyn." A non-binary teen in Atlanta stitched the commercial with tears streaming. For the first time, the ad talked to me, not at me. I feel seen. Every clip racked up millions. Every story carried the same heartbeat. Caitlyn didn't just play basketball. She opened doors that had been bolted shut since 1997. Meanwhile, the old guard crumbled in real time. One veteran posted a tearful apology video that aged like milk in the sun. Another tried the "I was taken out of context" defense and got ratioed into oblivion. A former commissioner's daughter, now a league executive, accidentally liked a tweet that read, "The league deserves to fold if it can't protect its future." Screenshot. Flame emoji. Career over. Ticket sales told the cruelest truth. Fever season tickets sold out in 43 minutes when the team announced Caitlyn would sign every jersey in person. The other 11 teams combined couldn't move an additional 5,000 seats. Broadcasters begged the league to add more Fever games. The league, paralyzed by pride, said no. ESPN ran them anyway under special presentation loopholes and pulled higher ratings than the NBA finals the same week. And then came the moment that broke the internet all over again. A leaked conference call from league headquarters. Someone forgot to hit end meeting. 30 seconds of audio that will live forever. Commissioner, we can't keep pretending the revenue is collective anymore. She's 70% of it. Team owner, then give her 70% of everything. Commissioner, we can't. The veterans will revolt. Team owner, they already lost. The brands just voted with their wallets. Dead silence. Then the click of someone finally hanging up. The clip hit Twitter at 2:14 p.m. By 2:37, it was the most viewed sound TikTok had ever seen. Immigrants, progressives, moms, kids, people who don't even like sports, everybody hit share. Because that 30-second leak wasn't about basketball. It was about every workplace, every community, every dinner table where someone new, someone younger, someone browner, someone not from here dared to outwork the gatekeepers and got punished for it. And in that moment, millions of us felt the same electric jolt. She's doing it for all of us. The empire didn't just crack. It shattered into 1,000 pieces, each one reflecting Caitlyn's face back at the people who tried to dim her light. But revolutions don't end with destruction. They end with something new rising from the ashes, something brighter, something that finally looks like the real America. And that something was already taking its first breath, waiting to tell us what comes after the throne falls. The smoke is still clearing, and there she stands, quiet, hoodie up, hands in pockets, watching the old palace burn without a single smirk. Caitlyn Clark never asked for the crown. She just refused to kneel. And in that refusal, she gave every little girl who has ever been told to wait, to shrink, to be grateful for crumbs, permission to stand all the way up. She turned a sport that spent decades guarding its gates into a wide-open plaza where a daughter of Panama and Iowa can shoot from the logo and the whole world cheers in 2 languages. This was never about one player against a league. This was about one story against status quo. About tomorrow refusing to apologize to yesterday. About the beautiful, messy, unstoppable truth that greatness doesn't need an invitation. It only needs space to breathe. Look at what she built without ever raising her voice. Mothers who never watched basketball now plan family vacations around fever road trips. Fathers who cross borders with nothing teach their kids English by reading Caitlyn box scores aloud. Kids who don't fit neatly into any one box see her half Panamanian smile on billboards and finally feel like the country has room for the in-between parts of them too. She proved that you don't tear down someone else's throne to build your own. You just outgrow the room they tried to keep you in until the walls fall down from the weight of all the new people rushing in to stand with you. The brands didn't leave the league because they're cruel. They left because love and money follow energy, and Caitlyn is pure, radiant, renewable energy. She turned cornfields into cathedrals, resentment into revenue, gatekeeping into gratitude. She showed the world that when you center the person who actually moves the culture doesn't just grow, it explodes into something louder, browner, younger, braver, freer. And the most revolutionary part? She did it with joy, with manners, with thank yous and signed jerseys and FaceTimes to her nana. She did it the way immigrants have always done it. Head down, work relentless, heart wide open, pride quiet but unbreakable. So let the old guard keep their dusty trophies and their back in my day stories. The future doesn't need their permission anymore. The future already has a face, and it looks like every kid who was ever told they were too much of one thing and not enough of another. It looks like driveway sunsets and grandmas cooking and 2 languages braided together in one heartbeat. It looks like a little girl in a hand-me-down jersey staring at a 30-foot Nike billboard of Caitlyn Clark and whispering, "That could be me." That is the real Caitlyn Clark effect. Not the points, not the logos, not the sold-out arenas. It's the moment a child anywhere on earth realizes the American dream still works if you're willing to outwork the gatekeepers and outlove the haters. She didn't break the league. She freed it. She freed all of us. And now the throne is empty, waiting for the next daughter who refuses to wait her turn. The next dreamer who understands that the most powerful way to say, I belong here is to simply belong louder than they can boo. So take the shot, Mija. Take the shot, Habibi. Take the shot, little man in the secondhand sneakers. The logo is closer than they told you. And somewhere, Caitlyn Clark is already cheering for you before you even release the ball. Because that's what queens do when they finally build a kingdom big enough for everybody. They make sure the door stays open forever. So here we are. The palace is ashes. The brands have spoken. The future has a face, and it looks like all of us. Caitlyn Clark didn't just drag women's basketball into the light. She tore the roof off so every little girl who ever felt too brown, too white, too loud, too quiet, too immigrant, too small town could finally see the sky and know it belongs to her too. This is what happens when one woman refuses to play small so others can stay comfortable. This is what America looks like when it finally keeps its promise. So if you, yes you, watching this with your daughter asleep on your chest, or your little brother pretending he's not crying, or your own heart pounding because you see yourself in her story, listen close. The shot clock is running, but the green light is yours. Take the logo 3. Speak the second language louder. Wear the jersey with your name on the back. Build the thing they said couldn't be built. Love the parts of you they tried to shame. Because Caitlyn proved it, when you carry your roots like a torch instead of a burden, you don't just light your own path. You burn down every gate that was ever locked against people who look like us. This movement isn't slowing down. It's just getting started. And it needs your voice, your story, your fire. Drop your "I took it anyway" moment in the comments. Tag the kid who needs to hear they belong. Subscribe. Share. Scream it from every rooftop. The throne is empty. The court is open. And the next legend is already warming up. See you at the game, familia. The logo is waiting.